This is Swamp Watch, Court Edition. The Supreme Court hasn't started its fall term yet, but there were a couple of important briefs filed this week. One brief was filed by lawyers representing Venezuelan immigrants who have been protected by a special program which gives them temporary protected status in the United States. The temporary protected status program was created in 1990, and Venezuelans have been granted temporary protected status since 2021. Soon after President Trump took office for his second term, the new Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, ended the program for Venezuelans. That action was blocked by a federal court in San Francisco, which ruled that the order violated the Constitution because it was motivated, at least in part, by racial animus, with Kristi Noem's comments calling TPS holders dirtbags, leading to this verdict. It went to the Supreme Court, which sided with the administration and put Chen's temporary order on hold. It went back to the original court for the case to be tried, where Chen found the order illegal. And now we're back to the Supreme Court to decide if they want to overturn the lower court ruling. So the first time they removed a temporary block while the case was heard. Now the case has been heard and a ruling has been made, so the Supreme Court has to decide whether to overturn that ruling. The other major brief was related to President Trump's birthright citizenship order. We knew this was going to come back again, but it has come back very, very quickly. So this week, the Trump administration filed a new brief, this time asking the Supreme Court to rule on the constitutionality of the birthright citizenship order. The former brief the Trump administration had filed earlier in the year asked the court to rule on whether courts could issue nationwide blocks. The Trump administration had the opportunity to ask the Supreme Court to fast track this process, but they chose not to. So now we're waiting to see if the justices vote to take up the case, which would require 4 of the justices to vote yes. Finally, the Trump administration filed their indictment in federal court against former FBI Director James Comey. To get to this indictment, President Trump had to pressure Pam Bondi to basically fire the former U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, who felt like there wasn't enough evidence to bring any charges. Once he was out of the way, Trump again pressured Pam Bondi to replace him with his former personal attorney, Lindsay Halligan, who has very little prosecutorial experience. This feels like a risky strategy for President Trump because it doesn't seem to be a very strong case. Legal scholars, state bar associations, piles of Democrats, and now a growing number of Republicans saying that the case is without merit. So there's significant risk that the indictment will just be dismissed outright.